Hi guys, welcome back to The Rustic Wife. I'm Alana. So today I'm in the kitchen. It's raining outside, so it's perfect to be inside and getting all these things preserved. I have some more plums you can see over my shoulder there. I've got to get those roasted and pureed, and what I'm going to do is put those in the freezer so that I can make some more jam a little bit later on when I have more time. So I'll get those roasted. I did a video on how to make plum fruit leather and I'll post it up here. And so that's always a good thing to do with your leftover fruit, or if you have an overabundance of your summer harvest, that's a great way to use that up. I've got some tomatoes I need to roast today, and I'm going to be making some roasted tomato sauce. I've got to pick some herbs out of the garden and grab some onions and some garlic and pick more tomatoes. I also have to make my daughter a birthday cake, so I've got a busy day today in the kitchen, so stick around and hang out. Got the plums all cut, and I'm just going to roast these. That may be too many. I'll have to do 2 batches. There, I don't want the juice to run over in the oven. Okay, my first batch of plums is done here. They're done. Oh, major steam burn. And look at all that nice juice in there. And I've got one more batch to go in. And that is the end of the plums. And like I said, I will puree these and keep the puree in the freezer until I have time to make some more jam. I've got a basket of tomatoes here that I need to work on, and then I have a lot more in the garden. So this is a mixture of tomatoes that I have. I've got some plum tomatoes and I've got some slicers here, but I'm going to roast all of these. So all I'm just going to do for these is just take the tops off and just cut them into chunks. Actually just going to core them, leave the skins on. And I just cut them into quarters. So as I just mentioned, I have various sizes of tomatoes and different varieties, but this actually is a plum tomato, if you can believe it. It's one called Granadero, and it is really nice. So I'm actually working on a video. I've got it filmed, but I haven't got it edited yet. What I did was I went through all the tomatoes that I grew and sliced them up and tasted them and showed you what they look like. Some of them I got video footage on the vine, some I didn't, but that's one of them that I will be showcasing. So I've got those tomatoes cut up, and those ones will be roasted. I have some cherry tomatoes. They are going to go into some juice. Now I've got a pot of tomatoes that I cut up the other day, and I just ran out of time. I had to put them in the refrigerator. So I'm actually going to make tomato juice out of these, so I'll do some tomato juice today too. We had a birthday breakfast this morning. It's my daughter's birthday, and I always like to make her breakfast table special. So I picked her some flowers, and I picked some rose petals and some lavender. So I picked those this morning in the rain, and the bouquet, I thought that was pretty. And I just had a little treat for her at the table. And balloons. So that's her breakfast table that we usually have. That's a tradition every year. I'm just taking a break from the tomatoes and plums. I've got some eggs to put in cartons. I've got a customer coming tonight, so we'll work on that. Not a good place to break an egg in between the washer and the dryer. Damn it. All right, that took a little bit longer than expected, but I want to show you the puree I've got here. This is what I have for the freezer. I'm going to be using most of it for jam, but I am going to keep some of it because I think that would be really nice on yogurt in the winter with some granola on it too. So I'll maybe keep 2 jars for that. So now I have that egg cleaned up in the laundry room. I have to clean up a boil over in the oven because one of the pans of plums boiled over and did exactly what I told you not to do in the previous video about making plum leather. So yeah, so I'm gonna have to clean the oven now before I make the cake. I'll get to these tomatoes. All right guys, I got my oven cleaned up, the boil over, but I could really do with a good oven cleaning. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, even though it is a bit of a pigsty. But what I am gonna do is I'm going to replace the light bulb while I'm in there because it has only been burnt out for probably about 2 months. And I've had these light bulbs. I've been using a flashlight. So I don't know, I don't know, I don't understand me sometimes. And we have light. Maybe that's how they get burnt out. All right, I'm finally making the cake. So this is the dry ingredients. There's flour, cocoa powder, sugar, baking soda, salt. And this recipe is from Olivia at Live for Cake. And I will link the description, or link that recipe in the description box below. So you just wanna mix up your dry ingredients. And then you're just going to mix the wet ingredients in a separate bowl. So there is some buttermilk, vegetable oil, 2 eggs, vanilla, hot water or coffee. I didn't have any coffee left from this morning, so I'm just using hot water. Okay, and then we've got the dry ingredients. And I am just going to mix the wet and the dry ingredients together. There, you don't want to overmix, but you do want all the flour and baking powder mixture in there. They're divided evenly into 2 9-inch cake pans. I greased them with shortening, put parchment paper on the bottom, and dusted with cocoa powder. And they're going in the oven at 350 for about 45 minutes. Okay, I've got my cakes here, and I'm just gonna let them cool before I flip them out onto the cooling rack. So I have a pound of unsalted butter, 5 cups of icing sugar, a pinch of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. So I've got the icing done and it's all whipped. So I'm just gonna put a wet tea towel over top of it so it doesn't dry out until I can use it. All right, because I'm me, I have to get stuff out of the garden in the pouring rain. I didn't have the forethought to come out and get the ingredients for what I'm making, but that's just typical me. So I'm out here in the rain to get stuff for the tomato sauce and the juice. All right, we have basil and some dill, oregano, thyme, onions, and some celery. I'm back in from the rain and I got the celery and the onions that I needed for my tomato juice and some dill. I throw a little bit of dill in there too. So I'm gonna show you how I do this. It's really super easy. So I have there's about 25 cups of chopped up ripe tomatoes. There's some cherry tomatoes in there. You can do it all in cherry tomatoes. If you have tons of cherry tomatoes, you can make juice out of that. My friend Mike Knutson from Wisconsin told me that that is how his mom used to do it, and I started to do it too. It's really good, it's really sweet. So then I just have 2 stalks of celery, chopped celery, and there's a handful of the leaves in there, and 1 large onion. You just do 2 small or 1 large, and just do them like roughly chopped. Then I have 1½ teaspoons of sea salt, and like a heaping ½ teaspoon of pepper. Sorry, that was celery seed. I don't have my glasses on, so I thought that was pepper. There is 1 teaspoon of celery seed in there, and then a heaping ½ teaspoon of pepper. 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar. You don't have to put that in if you don't want, but I find it kind of helps cut the acid a little bit. And then I'm just going to toss in a little bit of some dill ferns, but you don't have to, that's optional too. So I'm just going to put it on the stove top, just on low, just to get it simmering. and put the lid on to get it going, and we'll come back to that. So I have the pan of chopped up tomatoes, and I have about, it's probably a large onion on there, and probably about 10 or 11 cloves of garlic. I've chopped them up, so that's why it looks like there's more. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle on some sea salt, probably just, I don't know, a teaspoon or more. It's to taste, really. You can always add more salt after it's done. And then some black pepper. And then I just sprinkle on a little bit of brown sugar. I like brown sugar on it. Not too much though, just a little bit. And then this is going to go in the oven at 425 for about a half an hour. And then I will put the fresh herbs on there. Those are all the herbs that I picked. And I have another pan ready to go. I won't use all these tonight, but I'll just put them in the fridge for some other batches that I'm going to do. I just pulled this out of the oven, and then I've got some fresh herbs here. I've got some basil, oregano, and some thyme. And I just sprinkle this over the top. I don't really have measurements, I just eyeball it. And then I'm going to stick this back in the oven for another 10 minutes. So that's it. You can see there's a little bit of charring going on with the tomatoes and onions, and that's what I was looking for by putting it under the broiler for about 5 or 6 minutes at the end with the herbs. So I'm going to let that cool down, and then I will put it in the blender and puree it, and it's done. And our tomato juice is simmering here. So I still have this juice on low, it's just simmering here. Just give it a stir. What you want is, you want these vegetables, the onions and the celery, you want those kind of soft, because I'm going to put it through a food mill, and you want the juice and the pulp out of there. And if they're too hard, they won't be able to be pushed through the food mill. So I've got my tomato juice over my shoulder here, and what I'm going to do is run that through the food mill. And I'm probably going to keep that batch in the fridge and work on some more tomorrow. And then I'll combine the two batches, heat it up, and can it tomorrow. That way I don't have to have my canner going twice. This is what the tomato juice looks like, and what I'm going to do is ladle that into my food mill over top of a bowl, and as I turn this, that is going to keep the seeds and the skins back, and the juice and everything will be in this bowl. All the pulp has been pushed through, and the juice, and the skins and the celery and some of the onions, they are, like, the juice has gone through, but that's left up here. So I'm not going to waste that. I'm going to spread that onto parchment paper lined cookie sheets and dehydrate it, and then I will grind it up into powder, and I can use that for to flavor some dishes. So here's the tomato juice. And like I said, I'm just going to keep this in this pot, put it in the fridge overnight, because I have more to do tomorrow, and then I'll just can them all in a big batch. So this is the last batch of the roasted tomatoes. And I have some of them pureed already, and this is the last batch for tonight anyway. So there's the pasta sauce. It's nice and thick and lots of flavor in it. So what I will do is, I've got a lot of other batches to make, but this one I'm just going to freeze it. What I do is I just portion it out into Ziploc freezer bags when it's cool, and then I will lay them flat, freeze them flat like that. When I have bigger batches, then I'll can those, but just for this batch tonight, I'm just going to let it cool and then freeze them. And I have the cake started. So this cake is for tomorrow night, so I don't have to rush that bad, but yeah, so I've got one layer on anyway in the middle. So the crumb coat's done, and we will put the rest of the icing on it and then the flowers. All right, I got the birthday cake done, and there's a lot of cleanup to do. Well, actually, it's not too bad. The little flowers turned out perfect. She loves pastel colors. So here's my tomato mixture that has dried, and I'm just going to let that cool, and then I'm going to puree that into a powder that So out of those scraps, excuse my hands, I've been working in the garden. Out of those scraps, we've got all of that dehydrated tomato powder that you can use to flavor soups or stews or anything, or even probably add some water to it and just have a cup of hot vegetable broth. That would be good too. Thanks for joining me in the kitchen today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you again next time.